Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys are doing good. As I said in my Instagram post that I was going to start doing tutorials on various topics. So I'll start with the Python today, and in the future we will move to more advanced stuff such as how to do data analytics with Python, then what are the different libraries you will use for data engineering, and many more stuffs from basics of Python to creating models in machine learnings and many more. So I've created Discord channel. You can find the link in the description. If you have any doubts, if you face any error, then I'll be happy to solve that. Or some of the people who already know that will happy to solve that too. So make sure you join the Discord channel. And this will be the basics of Python. So I will start with the how to install Python, and we will then move to different things. And I'll start with so so if you don't have Python environment in your PC, then you can go to this website such as python.org and download Python from here. You can download any version of Python. So don't worry about the version at this moment. The goal is to learn basics of Python. So you can download this version, and once you download it, you can directly go over here and click on the downloaded version and install it. Make sure you click on this particular thing, so add Python to path, because if you don't do that, then you won't be able to access Python from command line. So just click on this and just click on install and just go next, and you'll get it. Once you do that, because I've already installed Python, so I'm not going to do it again, then you will have to install Jupyter Notebook. So Jupyter Notebook is a Python interactive tool, so you can do a lot of stuff in single page. You don't have to worry about running your code again and again. So you can run your code into different blocks and get started with that easily. So when I'll provide you this IPython notebook, so when you download this IPython, make sure you go to that folder and run cmd. And just if you don't have Jupyter Notebook installed, what you can do, you can write pip install Jupyter notebook and click enter, and it will basically install the Jupyter Notebook. I already have the Jupyter Notebook installed, so it will just tell me that okay, I have already that thing on my path. So as you can see, the requirements all are satisfied. So if you don't have Jupyter Notebook, then it will basically install from the start. Once you install the Jupyter Notebook, you basically have to write at the same directory Jupyter Notebook, and it will take around like 1 to 2 minutes to run this based on your computer configuration. But it will start one Python notebook where you can interact with just run your Python code and see everything, see how output into chunk by chunk, which I'll show you. And I've also created this notebook in a way that you will be able to do hands-on practice. I've also put a lot of quizzes and challenges in between, so that way you will get hands-on practice. And before moving to the next part, I just wanted to tell you guys that don't just watch this video. If you are just watching this video, then you won't learn anything. You have to do hands-on practice. So make sure if you are on a PC, then you can basically install this and start with me. If you are not on PC, then put this video into your watch later, and when you are on the PC, then you can start like with this particular tutorial. So once you have everything ready, then you can get started over here. So as you can see, this is a Jupyter Notebook. Okay, I've already added a lot of codes over here for your convenience. What I'm going to do right now is just restart and clear all the outputs, because I've already run a lot of things. And I'll just zoom this notebook a little bit so you guys can see. Okay, it looks good now. So let's start with the basics of Python. Okay, so Python is a general purpose programming language, and it is interpreter language, not compiled. So if you know about some of the languages such as C, C++, Java, in order to get the output, we need to run the entire code to get the final output. But in the Python, you can go chunk by chunk and get the output. You don't have to worry about compiling the code from start to end. And there are a lot of things supported such as object-oriented programming, functional programming, and it comes into two versions. One was 2.7, which is deprecated right now, so nobody uses that, and the current latest version is 3.9, but you can use any version above 3.5 if you are just installing it, so don't worry. Now let's start with the printing our first output in the Python. So if you are in this Jupyter notebook, you can follow with me to get the same output. So the Jupyter notebook, the Jupyter notebook is basically Python interpreter, okay, and it gives you more power and flexibility when you write the code. So if I'm writing this code into any code editor or terminal, what I have to do, if I run anything, I'll have to run a lot of things from the start in order to change my output or anything. But in this particular Jupyter notebook, what you can do, you can run code cell by cell and get the output and get much better look of your data. So let's start with printing hello world. So you just have to like shift enter to run this particular code, or you can click on this run and that will run the code too. And as you can see, we get the output as hello world. So in the Python, if you want to print any data on the screen, okay, you just have to do is write the function print into the parenthesis, and in the double quotation you can provide any string. So this is when we write any words or any character inside double quote, it is considered as string. So this is how you basically start. This might be your first line of code which you can write in Python. So this is like really easy to print the code onto the and basically display that particular string. If you want to do this particular thing in Java or C or C++, you will have to import a lot of libraries. You will have to write main function, and then you will be able to display the function. So that is the reason Python gives you faster writing of the code, but on the computer side it's quite slow because of it basically converts this particular thing into C and it runs the code. So that is the reason. Now let's look at what we are going to learn today. Okay, so we'll start with the Python basics. So first we will look at the strings. So how to create strings, how to index, how to get the character from the string, and what is slicing, how to concatenate two strings, and how to build repetition in the string, and some of the built-in string methods. Then we will look at numbers and basic arithmetic operations. Then we will look data types in Python such as lists, dictionaries, sets and booleans, and then we will move to more programming concepts such as iterative statement, if-else statement, loops, comprehension, exception handling. Some of the things I've already removed because I'll put that into next video because those are quite advanced topic. So just wanted to say that. Now so this is again I just added it here over here. So if you want to print new string over here, so you can just shift, click enter and get the string. Now let's say if you don't know how to print this particular string, this is your turn. So you can click double over here and get the output over here, just in case if you don't know that solution of this particular code. So likewise I've provided a lot of quizzes in this particular notebook. So if you get stuck, you can directly use this particular output and get the answer. Okay, so let's start with the basics of Python. Okay, so let's understand data types, variable scoping, and different packages in the Python, and what are the operators. So let's start with the string. So strings are used in Python to record text information such as names. String in the Python are usually sequence, which basically means Python keep tracks of every element. So what you can do is you can access first single character to the last single character in the sequence. So when you have a string, it will give number from 0 to the length of the string. So we will look that into detail in the next part. So as you can see over here, let's say if we have string as hello, then this first character will be our index 0 and the next character will be 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. So in most of the programming language, the indexing is the place from where the string starts basically. So in the most of the programming language, it will start from 0. Okay, so make sure when you want to access particular string, you start with a 0 and then put your next number. So let's look at how to create strings. We already looked into this above topic. So creating string is pretty much easy. You can write directly anything you write inside the quotation, it will consider as a string. So if you run this particular code, this is what we created. Now this is the string. Now if you want to, let's say, create another string, my name is Darshil, so I hit shift enter and it will give me the output as a string. So this is basically string. Now if I want to access this keywords, most of the time when we are working as a data scientist or data engineer, there might be chance that if I want to extract my name from this particular string, then I can do it with slicing or indexing. So let's say if I want to just access the first character from this name, then we're gonna use indexing. Indexing is basically each and every string has particular index attached to it, which we already talked about, and it starts from 0. So we already know that strings are in sequence, which means Python can use indexes to call that particular part of that sequence. Okay, so let's learn how it works. So let's say we store this particular string inside the variable. We're gonna talk about variable into detail in the next section of this video, but just consider variable is something which holds the value. So in the computer memory, S will point to that particular direction and it will store hello world inside that. So it will not basically, okay, so S will store hello world. Okay, it's kind of like a bucket where you can like store your data. It's kind of like a bucket where you can basically store your data. So this is how you define a variable. You can just write the variable name and store whatever the string you want. And let's say if you want to access any particular character from this string, so if I do inside the bracket, you just have to provide the index location of that string. So let's say if I do print S6, and it will give me this W. Now if you look at this particular length, it will, if you start with a 0, then this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So this is the 6th location. But if you start it from the 1, then it will be the 7th location. Okay, so make sure if you count index, you start from the 0, because most of the time in the mathematics we start from the 1, but in the programming the counting starts from the 0. Okay, now let's print another thing. Let's say if I want to print, if you run this code, you will be able to see such as printing the entire string. Then if you just print empty statement, then it will basically give you space. If you want to print the first character, which is the first element inside this hello world, H, then you can just provide index equal to 0, and you can give S of 1 to get the particular E, which is the first index. Okay, so this is how you basically print the string. Now over here, as you can see, is the challenge for you guys. So if you want to print L, okay, so you can basically do S of 2 and it will give you the L. Now your challenge is to print D from this particular string. Okay, so if you don't know how to do that, you can basically click over here and get the solution. But this is pretty much easy. You just have to count the index of that particular string and just write it over here. Make sure you start with the 0. Okay, don't start with the 1. Now this is what we looked at into the string. Now let's look at the concatenation and repetition. So why concatenation is basically means combining two strings together. So when you are working with the data, and it might be the case that you want to combine first name and the last name together. Okay, so you can use concatenation in the Python to do that. And some string repetition is basically multiplying that string into multiple occurrences. So let's say we store hello inside the S1, and S2 we stored world. Okay, so if you just want to concat, you can use plus operator inside the Python. So if it is a string, okay, and if you use the plus operator, it will basically concat or combine those two strings. But if it is a number, then it will basically give you the addition of that particular number. So if we do that, then this will give us hello world. So this is how you write. You basically provide your variable name, then you provide the plus sign, then you can add anything. So this is to give you the space in between. If I don't do that, okay, and if I just write the plus over here, then it if I just do the plus over here, then it will not leave the space in between. So to make it look good, you can basically add a space over here, so it will give you the hello world. Now if you want to multiply this particular string, then you can use asterisk sign. Just multiply it by, let's say 3. Let's say if I want to do it by 5, then it will repeat this entire thing in the 5 occurrences. This is like pretty simple. Okay, it's not kind of like a rocket science. Now you have to print data 15 times as your challenge. Okay, so you can do that. So currently till now we were only extracting the single character from the string. But what if I want to extract this entire, only the hello from this hello world? So how would we do that? So for that we have like indexing, which is basically it only extracts the one single character, or we can use slicing. Slicing basically gives you subset of an entire string. So let's say we store the s equal to namaste world. So inside the s variable we have namaste world stored, okay. And if I want to, let's say, extract a from this particular string, so what I'll have to do, I'll just write s of 1 and I'll get the a from that. And if I want to get the data from the range, let's say if I want to extract the world from this particular string, so I'll have to go with this like 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, and it starts with the 8, okay. So I'll write over 8 over here, 8, then 9 10 11 12, and basically one more, 1 plus 1. We will talk about the reason of plus 1, but you can either provide 13, okay, over here, or you can keep it empty. The if you put empty, it will consider everything from 8th particular index, and if you provide, let's say, 13 over here, then it will give you some kind of output, which is basically the world, okay. So we got the output as the world. Now if I don't provide anything, so you need, for the slicing, you need to write colon in between. So if I do just 8 colon, and it will still give me the same output as a world, okay. Now you can access string from the end location. So if you want to do that, you can use minus sign. So as we look, it starts from the 0 from the start, but if you go in the reverse direction, it will be -1 -2 -3 -4 -5, and like that, okay. So if I want to extract world from the in the reverse direction, then what I can do is I can just write the -5, which is this particular string, and it will give me the same output as it, okay. Now if you want to find out some particular word that is occurred inside that particular string, so let's say inside this namaste word, if I just want to find out if a world exists inside this particular string or not, okay, just want to find out that this particular thing exists in that particular string or not. So you just have to write world in is basically it will check this particular word inside s. If it is if it finds the word, then it will return true, okay. If it does not find anything related to, let's say we provide anything, okay, then it will return false, because it is not able to find this particular string inside the world, okay. So that's pretty simple, okay. Then we have what, so this is one more challenge for you guys. So you need to print world from this string, and you need to print ste from this particular string, okay. So good luck with that. If you don't know the solution, you can always click over here, okay. Now the reason for providing over here, when we do slicing, why we did not provide 12, which is basically the location of t, but we wrote 13, okay. So let's say if we write 12, okay, so then it will give me output as WORL. It will not consider the last index we are talking. So in the slicing, when you are providing any index number, make sure you provide +1, okay. So Python will only consider up to the 12, okay. It will not consider the 12th index. As you can see over here, Python grabs everything from 6 up to the 10th. If we just provide the 10th, okay, so it will basically consider 6 7 8 and 9. It will not consider 10, okay. So your statement so the context is basically up to but not including. So it will not include the last index, but it will go till the up to. So make sure when you are trying to access, you always provide the +1 in order to get the string till that location, okay. Now let's look at some of the built-in string methods. So we looked at how to extract characters, how to slice the particular string, how to find some kind of words inside that particular string. Now let's look at the methods or the functions inside the string. So whenever you create any string variable, it is basically an object. So we will talk about the object into the future video when we go inside the object oriented programming side of the Python. But object is basically there is a class, okay. Inside the class there are a lot of variables in the function, and the string is one type of a class, and you create the object by doing this. Okay, so when you create an object, you can access the functions or methods inside that particular class. So there are a lot of functions available inside the string class, such as upper and lower. So the use of this inside the real world is that, okay, so sometimes we have data quite messy, and if you want to compare two data, such as my at one table my name is in capital, but in another table it is in the small. Okay, so you, to compare that both the data, you need to bring that data onto the same alphabetical level. Okay, so with the same case, so let's say if I want to convert this hello world into the uppercase, what I have to do is basically s, which is your variable, or you can say as an object. Okay, then dot to access that particular function, and just write upper. So it will basically convert this particular string into the upper. So you just run this particular string code, and as you can see over here, it will give you this particular output. Now when we look at this particular type is a function inside a Python to find out the data type of that particular variable. We will talk about data type in the coming section, but so if you run this particular thing, you will see it is class of string. Okay, so this s is a class. Okay, and this s will be pointing to class of the string inside the Python, and you will be able to access a lot of methods that are available inside the string object. Okay, so don't worry about the classes. We will do classes when we go with the object oriented Python. Okay, now after this we have like printing statement. So printing statement is basically when you want to print something in the proper format. Okay, so let's say we have name Einstein, age, and married. Okay, so there are two ways you can print particular value of the variable inside Python. One is directly using %s. %s stands for string. Okay, so if you have like background of the C++, you will know this about this. You can use percentages to %s or I to display the particular variable, but inside Python you just have to write %s. Then at the end of the string you just have to provide the parameters followed by percentages. So the way you do is you provide like all the variables in the order you want, and it will be printed based on the %s you provide over here. Or the second way is using the parentheses. Okay, so let's say if I want to print name over here, I just have to write dot format and pass the name variable over here. So if you run this particular thing, you will be able to see my name is Einstein. Okay, it's the same thing, my name is Einstein. So instead of %s, you have provided name, so it will put the value of inside the name over on this particular location, and you will be able to see the output. Same goes over here. So you can use anything you want, it's not like mandatory, but using formatting is much easier and much cleaner, so make sure you use this particular thing. Okay, so again this is the mini challenge, so you can work with this thing. So here we are ending our string series. Okay, now let's look at the numbers in the Python. Okay, so what we're going to look at is the types of the numbers in the Python, basic arithmetic operation, and object assignment in the Python. Okay, so Python has various types for the numbers. Okay, but in this video we're going to focus mainly on integers and the floating points. So integers are just whole numbers such as positive or negative. It can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or in the negative it is -1, -2, or any number which does not have decimal point. Okay, so those are the integers. And the floating point number, as it name says, it will have some kind of decimal point, or the exponential, which is a scientific number which always have e inside that. Okay, so such as 2.1 -2.1 or 4e2, which sometimes is a 4 times 10 to the power of 2. Okay, this is the scientific notation. So if you're dealing, most of the time you won't be dealing with this particular thing, but if you are working on the core mathematics problem, then you might have to work with this. Okay, but when you are working in a business, you won't have to worry about this particular thing. Okay, so this is an example of the sum of the numbers. Now let's look at the basic arithmetic operations. So you can use Python as a calculator also. So what you will have to do is just as a like common sense, you can just write plus to add the numbers, minus to subtract, use the asterisk to multiply, and use the division sign to divide that particular number. So you will see 2 plus 1 is 3, and you will get the output. So it's like pretty much basic thing inside the Python. Now let's look at the powers. Okay, so there are many ways you can do the power in the Python. One of the ways to do by the 2 asterisk sign. So when you provide 2 asterisks, it will give you 2 raised to 2, which is basically 4. Okay, or you can provide, let's say, 3, it will give you the 8. That's like the common basic mathematics. This is the school level mathematics. Okay, you can even use the math package, which we will talk about in this notebook further. Then these are like the basic orders of operations. So inside Python it will go like this. Okay, so most of the programming languages follow this particular operation. Is that first it will consider the multiplication or division sign. Okay, it will go left to right. So first it will take multiplication or division sign, then it will take like plus and the minus sign, and then it will take all the other signs that you have provided. So when we run this particular code, you can see first it will multiply 10 into 10, which is basically 100. Then it will add 2, and then it will add 3, so which is 105. Now this is wrong. We can't say this is wrong, but this should not happen like this, because let's say if we want this 2 particular thing together and this 2 particular thing, and just multiply those results. Okay, so it will change the output of this particular code completely. So for that you need to use parentheses. Okay, so when you use parentheses, then it will take the first preference always. So it will go from left to right. Okay, then it will see this parenthesis, so it will evaluate this particular parenthesis first, which is basically 10 plus 2, which is 12. Okay, then it will basically locate this multiplication, then it will keep that inside that memory, and it will go with this particular thing, which is 10 plus 3, which is 13, and then it will multiply this both the results and give you the output. Okay, now here's one more quiz, so you can follow this. Now let's talk about variable assignment. Okay, so we have seen how to use numbers in Python as a calculator. We already looked into this particular thing. So this is we were doing the basic calculation. Now what if we want to assign those particular numbers to a variable? Okay, so we look with the strings. Okay, now we will look with the numbers. Okay, so we can use single equal sign to assign a label to a variable. So when you create a variable, it will basically store, it will inside the memory, what will happen, it will, for particular A, it will store 5 inside that particular memory, and it will point to that particular direction. We will look about how it stores this particular variable inside the memory into the future video, because that is like really deep topic. Okay, so we will not jump to that, but just remember that when you assign a variable, it will store that particular value into that particular variable. So now we are assigning A is equal to 5, so value of A will be 5 right now. Now I can treat this particular variable and call it whenever I want. So if I just want to add 2 times, okay, A 2 times, then I'll get the 10. Okay, now I can even override this particular value to the new value. So if I reassign A is equal to 10, so this 5 value will get eliminated, and this new 10 value will be assigned to the A, and as you can see, if you check the output, it will be 20 again. Now let's say if you run this particular code, okay, so now the value of the A is 5. Okay, and if you run this particular code, then you will see output as 10, because in the back end the A holds 5. Okay, it does not hold 10 because we did not run this right now. So that way it will give you output as 10. But if you run this particular thing again, and if you run this again, and you will see the 20. Okay, so this is the power of Jupyter Notebook. Okay, you can play with the variables, so you can play with the code however you want. Okay, you don't have to worry about a lot of things, and you can easily debug your code also. So this is one more challenge for you guys. You need to find the mean of the 2 numbers. Okay, if you know the mean is basically getting the average of the 2 numbers, so you can work your way towards this. Okay, so some of the important rules that are in the Python when you are basically creating a variable. So name cannot start with a number. So what it means is, so let's say if we try 1 2 a equal to ASC equal to 5, then it will give me an error because the name of the variable should not start with the number. Okay, then the variable cannot have space in between. Let's say if I want to write ASC, then it will not work, it will also give me an error. Okay, so for that I need to write underscore when you want to separate two kind of string and also create a variable with that, because when you create a variable you need to make sure that it makes sense. Okay, so let's say we are storing entire name, so we will write like this: first name is equal to hello, let's say hello Darshil. Okay, so this is the first name which we basically stored, but if you write this space over here, it will not store that because it will give you an error, because this does not work that way. And also you cannot have any special characters such as hash, dollar or stuff like that inside the Python. Okay, so if you do that you will get an error. So make sure when you create a variable you follow this particular rule and create your variable like that. Okay, now let's look at this data types. Let me remove this. Okay, let's look at data types and data structure. So we ended the chapter 1 of the series. Now we will look about basic data types, okay, which we already talked about them, but we will look that into little bit detail, and we will talk about some of the inbuilt data structures available in the Python. So if you have like knowledge about the basic programming such as C or C++, okay, so the way those programming language works is that you need to first define the type of the variable. Let's say if you are creating integer, okay, so you need to write something like this: int a equal to 5. Okay, you need to specifically define this integer, but in the Python you don't have to do that. Python will automatically detect that particular thing. So when you assign 42 to this particular a and 32.30, okay, it will automatically decide which kind of variable is that. So if you run this particular thing, you will always see that this is an integer. Okay, so you will see this is the class of an integer and this is basically a float, so you will see the class of a float. Okay, so that way Python automatically identifies the variable. Now let's say if I type this as like hello, okay, and if I print the type of this particular variable, you just need to write the type and provide C, okay, and it will give me the string. Okay, so make sure you play with this and try different values to get the more understanding about this. Now there are different types of variables. We already looked about integers. Okay, then floating points is basically the numbers with a decimal number or the scientific notation. Okay, then there is the one which is the boolean. Boolean is basically it will always give you two values, which is true or false, or you can say 1 or 0. So it will always give that. So let's say if I assign this D to true, okay, that the first letter should be capital T. Okay, so and let's say if I print the type of this particular thing, so it will give me the bool, which is a boolean, okay, value. Okay, then there are some complex number in the strings, okay, that you can look into it. Now this is basically the basics variables and its types. Okay, now let's look the basic data structures inside the Python, and we're gonna start with the list. Okay, so list can be thought of as a more general version of sequence in the Python. So inside the string, when we create a string, it has particular sequence, so you can use index value to access that particular string. Okay, but what if we want to create the sequence of strings? So if we want to have multiple string inside that particular different string. Okay, so what I mean by that is that you can combine multiple values inside one particular list and access it. So let's say if you want to create a list can also be called as an array. Okay, if you have like another programming language background, you can also consider this as an array. And in the most of the programming languages such as C or C++, you will have to first define the size of the array you're going to use. Okay, so you cannot exceed that particular size once you define it, but in the Python you don't have to worry about. You can increase the size of your list or array as you run your code based on your requirements. So to create a list, this is like simple. You just write the variable name equal to, and inside the bracket you can provide your list. Okay, so if I run this and if I print my list, you will see I have the list over here. Now you can use list to store multiple things also. What I mean by is that we can store integers here, we can store name, then if I want to store, let's say, boolean value, okay, then let's say if I want to store float value, okay, and if I do that, I will be able to do that in the Python. But if you are using some another language such as C, okay, then C or C++, then you will have to first define the type of the values that are going to put inside the list. So if you define it as integer, then it will only hold the integers if it is another programming language, but inside Python it makes easier to do this kind of stuff. Okay, now let's say this list is the information about the products of the e-commerce company. So let's say this is the product ID 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. Okay, we have 7 products. Like that you will have like thousands of products. You might not know when you pull that from the database, and if you want to find out like what is the length, how many products I have in this particular list, then you can use len function, okay, which is the built-in function in the Python, and it will give you the length of this particular string. So this is like we have 7 digits inside this particular string list, so you will get 7 as an output. Okay, now this is your one more challenge that you can follow along. Okay, now let's say we already have a list over here. Okay, so let's say if I create a list, okay, this is my list, I've already created a list, and if I want to add particular more values inside the list, so I have list I've already fetched from the database, okay, and if I want to add more elements to that particular list, then Python has this function which is basically append. So you can use append. This will only work with the list. So let's go append, and let's say if I want to add my name into this particular list, so I'll do this and I'll enter, and if you basically check this particular list now, it will give me the name inside this particular list. Okay, so that way this is your one more challenge. Okay, you can add it. So like that append you have, if you want to combine two lists, okay, you can do it with a Python. So let's say I have this particular list and I want to append this list, I mean basically add this list into this particular list. So the output I want is something like this, 1 2 3 4 5 6, something like this. Okay, so to get this particular output I will have to use extend. Okay, so this will extend that particular list with the new list. So if I do that and if I run that, you will see the entire output. But what if we use append over here? What do you think it will be? Just think about it. If you do that, okay, so if we use append in this particular thing, then it will create the nested list. Okay, so we will look about nested list in the future section, but make sure you understand the difference between append and extend. Okay, extend will basically extend that particular list and add value as it is, but if you use append, then append will basically add this entire value inside that particular list and it will create a new list inside that. Okay, so just remember that little thing. So this is the difference. Okay, now we already looked the slicing on the above string when we were doing this string. So if you remember this particular section, it is okay, yeah, this is we talked about slicing to access the subset of that particular string. Now if I want to do that, like same thing with the list, I can do that. So if I want to access multiple part of the list, I can do that. So there are two, you just need to use the colon for the slicing, and so there are two ways you can use that. One is you can provide 3 values, that is the start, end, and the step. Step is basically how many jumps you want when you get the slice, and if you don't provide the step, and then it will consider everything. Okay, so there's a function inside the Python which is range. So if you want to basically generate the number from, let's say 0 to 10, then you can use range function to 0 to 9 basically. So you can use range function to create that particular list. Now let's say if I want to access values from 0 to 7, okay, so it will access value till here. As we talked about, it will not go till the 7 but up to the 7. Okay, so if I do this, I will get value till the 6. Okay, now let's say if I want to get all the values from uh, 10, okay, till the 10, and I want to skip each and every I just want to have like it should take 2 steps at a time, okay. So if I write 2 over here, then it will take 2 steps at a time. So it will go 0, then it will skip this particular part, and it will go 1 over here, okay. So it will give us like the default is 1, okay. So it will basically going 1 step at a time, but if you provide 2, then it will go 2 steps at a time. Then if you provide 3, then it will go 3 steps at a time, okay. That way you can actually get the some of the values if you want, okay. So this is like the same way if you want to print this into the particular format, such as elements from 4 to 7 index, and just provide the location, okay. So you can do that. So if you, let's say if you don't provide anything over here, okay, so as we talked about, it will consider everything, it will not limit to that particular number. So if I do that and let's say if I remove this also, then it will give me the all the list, okay. Let's say if I start from 5 and I stop at 0, then it will give me 5 to 9, okay. Let's say if I want to get 2 steps, then I can just provide the 2 steps and it will go to 5, 7 and 9, okay. That's pretty simple. Now, okay, so you can again do the mini challenge over here to understand this particular concept in the detail. Now we're gonna look about the dictionaries. This is like one of the most important data structures in the Python, okay. So dictionaries are basically key value variables, okay. So we're gonna talk about basic how to construct dictionary, then how to access values from that dictionary, then how to create nesting of the dictionary and basic dictionary methods, okay. So to create a dictionary is pretty simple, okay. So syntax is you use curly braces. So for the list we were using this particular thing, okay, the brackets, but for the dictionary we're gonna use this curly braces. Then with the curly braces you can basically use colon. So we have a key over here, and with the value we can provide the value over here, and with the same way you can then use comma and provide one more key and a value. So if I do that, and if I, let's say if I want to print the entire dictionary over here, so I can do print then provide my dictionary, okay, then it will go and basically print the value from that particular dictionary over here for me. So this is the entire dictionary. Now let's say if I want to access this particular value, so you can use key to call that particular value. So the syntax is pretty simple. You can use my dictionary and key, provide the key name inside the bracket, and you will get the value of that variable, okay. Now let's say if I want to change the value of the first key, okay, and if I want to assign it 1, 2, 3, okay, so if I can directly do that just by using this, okay, this particular key, and provide the value, and you will see the value of the key has changed now. It is 1, 2, 3. It was value 1, and it is 1, 1, 2, 3 right now, okay. Now let's say if I want to subtract anything and assign that new value to that string, okay. So this is like same common sense. If you know the basic logic, I can use the key, then use a minus, and just use the 1, 2, 3 and click the enter and click the value, and you will see I just subtracted the entire value and it is giving me 0, okay. So a quick note, okay, so in the Python, if you can directly do subtraction with the small syntax, okay, you don't need to write this entire thing. So if I, let's say if I want to just subtract this particular 1, 2, 3 again from this particular key, what I'll have to do is let's say I'll do the minus equal to which basically means this only, okay. So you don't have to provide this particular thing again. So Python will automatically understand that you want to subtract this 1, 2, 3 from this particular key, okay. So if you write minus 3 equal to 1, 2, 3, then it will give you minus 1, 2, 3 because the value of the key was 0, okay. Let's say if I do plus and give this, then it will be the 0 again because it was storing minus 1, 2, 3, and if I run this again, it will give me 1, 2, 3 because we are adding 1, 2, 3 again, okay. So basically this is your one more hands-on practice, okay. So you can work your way through it. So we looked into the list, we looked into the dictionaries, okay. Now let's look at the sets, okay. So the difference between the list and the sets is basically inside the set you will have unique elements. Okay, so if you want to get unique numbers or the strings from that particular list or set, you will have to use the set. So what I mean by the uniqueness is that, so let's say we have a list over here. Let's create a list. Okay, let's use this L equal to, okay, and if we see this, okay, so if you print this particular thing, you will see we have most of the repeated value inside the list. Okay, now if I just want this particular value, and if I want to L set, I will write this as L set. If I use set function, okay, inside on this particular list, and if I print this particular value right now, you will see that it only has the unique elements from this particular list. So it will only take only one occurrence of that particular element and it will print that. Okay, so this is, if you want to get the unique elements, you can use sets. Okay, sometimes you don't want duplicates in your data, so you might use sets for that. Okay, now if you want to add some values inside the set, you can use basically add function that is being provided inside the sets. So if you do that, I'll get x equal to value of the x as 1. Now if let's say if I want to add one more value as x dot add as 2. Okay, if I do that, and if I, let's say, print x again, it will give me 1 and 2. Let's say if I run this particular code again and again run this, it will not add that particular value because it is not unique. Okay, so just make sure. Okay, now that note that the curly brackets does not indicate dictionary, so this is not a dictionary, because dictionary, if you want to understand what is a dictionary, always remember that dictionary comes into the key and the value pair. Okay, so it should always have the key and a value inside the dictionary. Okay, so basically just remember that, and again you can basically use this add, you can add more elements, and this is your quiz, so you can follow this. Now let's look into the programming construct such as conditional statements, looping, and comprehension. So this is like kind of like a last section of this tutorial series. Okay, so the reason why do we use if, elif, and else statement inside any programming language is that most of the time we have some kind of business logic, such as, let's say you are working in an e-commerce company. Okay, and you want to get the data into different sections, such as if the order was ordered on the last week, such as the date as, let's say, 17 July. Okay, so if the order is greater than 17 July, then print something or do something such as ship that particular order, or if it is like shipped, if it is ordered today, then don't do anything. Okay, so you can write different conditions inside the if statement and get perform your logics. So this is how you basically write the if statement. Okay, so you have if, this is basically you are checking if A is greater than B, so it will go inside the program and it will check whether this value of, let's say this is 5 and this is 10, the value of 5 is greater than 10 or not. Okay, so if you use the common sense, okay, you can easily say that the B is greater. Okay, so it will not execute this particular chunk. Okay, but then it will check if B is greater than A or not. Okay, so if we look that B is greater than A right now, because the value of B is 10 and the value of A is 5. Okay, so then it will go inside this particular chunk. Okay, and let's say both the values are equal. Okay, and then the condition will not satisfy and it will go inside this particular section. Okay, just remember that Python has like proper structure to write the code. Okay, so when you, let's say if you write the code and if you want to basically, if you use any good editor, it will automatically indent that particular code to the proper location. But if you do this way and if you run the code, you will get an error because it is not proper indentation. Okay, indentation is the structure of your code and Python follows that particular structure strictly. So just make sure that you don't actually do the bad indentation. Make sure everything is proper. So when you run this particular code, you will be able to see that A and B are equal. Let's say if I want to change this particular thing and add to 6. So the output of this is b is greater than a. Now same way, if I let's say do this 2, and I get a is greater than b. So again, indentation is really important to keep good understanding, maintain the structure of your code properly. Okay, we will touch about this thing in the future. Again, we will look into different indentation methods in the Python, so don't worry about that. Now let's look at loops. So we have like for loops over here. So a for loop acts as a iterator in the Python. Iterator is like it goes one by one on the inside the item. So if we have a list, it will go one by one, like 2, 4, 5, 6. It will execute each and everything separately. Okay, so the objects that we have learned about, that we can iterate over, like strings, lists, tuples. We will talk about tuples in the next video. And such as even you can iterate on the dictionary, such as based on the keys or index. So it is pretty simple to create the loop. So this is the syntax for. So item is basically item inside that particular object. So in this particular example, the item will be 2, okay, or 4, 5, 6 likewise. In the object is basically our list, okay, list name. Then you can do statement to do anything. So let's say if I want to take this 2 and do something on this, then I can iterate over this particular loop and then work through that way. So the variable name you use, it's up to you. You don't have to use like number only. You can use anything over here. So but it is like you should know that it should make sense when whatever the variable name you use. You can even use your name over here in order to basically get the values from this particular list. Okay, so I'll just use number, and what this particular code does is gets you the whether the number is even or odd. It will check that, so it will only print the even numbers. Okay, so if you run that, you will only get the even numbers from this list. So it will do number mod 2 is equal to 0. So it will check whether the modulo of that number is 0. Okay, if it is 0, then it is a even number, and if it is not 0, it is basically an odd number. So let's say if I do else if I do this like this, else print odd, okay, or then it will print like this. So 2, 4 are even number, and this will print odd. Then 6, 7, then it will go to the 5 and it will print odd, like that. So you can do a lot of things working with the list, for loops and if conditions. Okay, so most of the time when you are working on a good business logic, you will have to like write multiple for loops and write a condition that matches the business requirements. Then this is again your one more challenge that you can use. So like for loop, we have while loop. While statement is like one of the general way to perform iteration in the Python. Okay, so this statement will basically keep executing things inside that particular loop until the condition satisfies. So what I mean by is that, and always remember when you use while loop, you need kind of a exit condition, okay, and make sure the value at the end of the condition satisfies. So the value of the x is over here is 0. Okay, so let's say the while x is less than 10. Okay, so what it will do, it will first go over here, it will print the value of x. Okay, then it will go over here, then x is still less than 10, we are just printing the string, so adding 1 to the x, and then we are incrementing the value of the x. So it will basically loop through the x till this particular condition matches. Okay, so let's say if you run this, so you will be able to see that the value of the x is 0, then it will add the value. This is basically same as this, see x is equal to x plus 1. Okay, this particular thing and this particular thing is the same, so don't get confused with that. Okay, and the reason I've used hash, because if you want to provide the comments inside the code, okay, you can use hash inside the Python. So the interpreter will ignore this particular section and it will not execute this part. So this is just to make sure that to remember what you have done. So you will write a lot of complex logics in the future when you are working. So you might forget what you have written like 2 months back. Okay, so just in case if you want to remember that logic, what that particular logic does, you can write this as 1 to x. Okay, you can just write whatever the English you want, and it will basically you can remember if you come back to the code in the future. Now this was just the for loop and the while loop. Now let's look at a basic modular packages inside the Python. Okay, so I already talked about the math library. Okay, so math is kind of like a package available inside the Python. Okay, so you just have to write like import and the package name. There will be like a lot of packages such as pandas, numpy, scikit-learn that we are going to look in the future, and we will also see how to work with that. So if I want to get the log of the particular number, I can just write this and it will give me the log. Let's say if I want to get the power, so for that the function name is power, POW, and if you run this particular thing, okay, so I need to give the power out input also. So I want to raise 2 raised to 2. Okay, 2 raised to 2 is basically 4, so you need to provide 2 arguments. Let's say if you want to understand this, then you can go onto the Google and say math library in Python. Okay, then you can basically go through documentation or go to any website if you are new. And if you look at, these are the functions supported by the math library. There are a lot of sine, cos, and a lot of mathematical functions that you can use to get your basically output. So it has like description also, so you can follow this. Okay, this is again your mini challenge. Okay, so work on to this. Now let's talk about how to create a file. Okay, this is like kind of like one of the most important thing also, because you will be reading a lot of files, you will be writing different files. Okay, this is like a basic reading text file. Okay, so the Python provides file objects to read in text or binary files, so you can use file as an object to open that particular thing. Okay, and since the file is a resource, it must be closed after. So when you basically open a file inside your computer, okay, so you make sure you always close that file before turning off your computer. So when you open a file in a Python, so you need to make sure that programmatically you close that file also. Okay, so let's say if I want to create a new file inside the Python, so what I have to do, there is a syntax which is basically with, okay, open, then I provide the path of this particular file where I want to write. So if I can even do the like different paths, such as C, inside the C there is like folder and slash. Okay, so if this folder exists, then it will create this particular file inside that particular location. But if you use directly the file name, then based on the directory you are in right now, it will create the file over there, and you need to pass the parameter which is w means write. Okay, if you use r, then it means if you use r, that it means read. Okay, and then create an object which is basically as f. Okay, so this is one of the way you can create the file. There are like multiple ways. Okay, so I'm just going to show you the basic way. So I've just created the file, and now it will create the file. So if I go to my directory, if I check, so I have my what was the file name? Okay, I guess that was the text. This was like test.txt, and we wrote hello world inside that particular file. So if I go here, if I right click and if I open this with a notepad, you'll see that I have like hello world written inside this file. So I've created a file with the hello world. Now let's say if I want to read this file inside the Python only. Okay, so make sure we already talked about, we need to write, I guess this is the syntax, I'm not sure, but yeah. So if you want to read a file, okay, the file we just created, the syntax is pretty much same, but instead of w, you just have to provide r over here. That means we're gonna read the file. Okay, then the file we're gonna read will come into the particular object, and you need to iterate through that object in order to get the entire line. So if you run this particular thing, you will see the hello world is printed. Let's say if we don't do this, okay, and if we print f, let's say what we can, okay, this will give us kind of an object out. So this is basically an object, okay, text wrapper inside the Python, which is been encoded in the mode of R. Okay, so if you want to print what is inside that particular object, then you need to loop through this particular object and get the file. So you will be able to see the output inside the hello world. Okay, this is like one of the way also. So this is basically to find out the directory of your path. Okay, so this is kind of like in this particular directory I am currently in. Okay, so this os dot, this is like inbuilt package inside the Python, which is OS. So if you do os.path and absolute path, and inside if you print this current directory, which is curdir, it will give you the current directory. Okay, it's not important right now, but I just wanted to add that over here. So that's everything from the Python. So we looked into a lot of things today. So we looked about the strings and the numbers, the different types of data types in the Python, then data structures such as list, dictionary, sets and booleans, and some of the programming concepts such as loops, if else, for loops, and other things. In the next video, we're gonna look into the comprehension, exception handling, then some of the more input and output of the files, and then we will go about learning how to use Python function, the object-oriented programming, and more things. And then we will look into the packages such as NumPy, pandas, and a lot of things. Okay, so see you in the next video. If you get any error, okay, if you find any issues with the Python code, then you can join the Discord channel. I've already provided the link in the description, so you can click over here and you can ask your doubt over there, or you can even ask your doubts in the comment section. Okay, I'll be happy to help. Okay, I hope you learned something new today. If you're just a beginner, then I guess this will be the useful for you. If you already know some of the programming language, then might be quite revision for you. But if you already knew the Python, then might be the new revision for you. And see you in the next video. Thank you.